All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we are absolutely tearing into the explosive growth of a brand new global sport that has just taken the world by storm. It's honestly a masterclass in how to identify a totally hidden market, build a highly scalable business model around it, and turn everyday gym goers into wildly passionate athletes. We're looking at Hyrox, the fitness racing empire that's currently on track to generate a staggering $270 million in revenue. If you have ever set foot inside a gym, you're absolutely going to want to pay close attention to how this company is completely rewriting the playbook for mass participation sports. Okay, let's dive into this because this single question reveals the massive, completely untapped market that sparked this whole global phenomenon. The founders of Hyrox stumbled onto this fascinating piece of data. 52% of people who regularly go to the gym consider fitness to be their sport. But if you really think about it, that doesn't actually make any sense at all. The reality was, they played absolutely no sport. Fitness wasn't a sport, right? It was just a training methodology. Millions of people were spending hours on treadmills, lifting weights, doing endless burpees just to lose weight or look good. But there was no standardized competition. There was no game day. The founders realized that the biggest sports infrastructure on the entire planet, we're talking over 500,000 gyms globally with hundreds of millions of members, was sitting right there, completely underutilized for competitive sports. They found a literal billion-dollar void in the market. Section 4. The Void in Fitness. Finding the Missing Sport. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what sports events expert Christian Tutski, an Olympic gold medalist Moritz first day, realized. Tutski likes to compare traditional gym culture to a driving range. Just imagine millions of people going to the driving range every single day to hit golf balls. But the actual 18-hole golf course hadn't even been invented yet. Everyone's just practicing, but they have nowhere to actually play the game. Hyrox was built to literally be that 18-hole golf course for gym goers. So they created this entirely new category and called it fitness racing. And the absolute genius here was making it super accessible, rather than intimidatingly complex. They definitely didn't want highly technical, heavy Olympic weightlifting that would just scare the average person away. Instead, they built a race combining endurance running with natural, functional workouts. You know, things you already do in any standard gym. It was designed so that literally anyone, from your average weekend warrior all the way up to a pro athlete, could safely step onto the floor and compete. Section 7. Building the ultimate race, standardizing the sweat. Let's move to and see how this builds into a true global sport, rather than just some one-off festival. The product design required one absolute necessity: a standardized format. Every single Hyrox race in the world is identical. You run 1 kilometer, then you complete a functional workout station, something like a sled push or sandbag lunges. And then you repeat that sequence 8 times. Because the layout never ever changes, it allows for global benchmarking. You can finish your race in New York and instantly compare your time with a competitor over in Japan. It finally gives people a clear, measurable metric to train for all year round. But getting this massive idea off the ground was anything but easy. Moritz Förster had just retired from professional field hockey. He'd won 2 Olympic gold medals and a bronze, and he was terrified of that void athletes fall into when their career ends. He was desperately searching for a second arena to feel that competitive fire again. Well, he believed in Hyrox so deeply that he went all in, risking absolute financial ruin. He borrowed incredibly heavily from family, friends, banks with zero backup plan, all just to launch their very first 650-person event in Hamburg back in 2017. Section 10. Surviving the COVID pivot, a near collapse and a creative rescue. Now, just as the business was really starting to prove its model, the ultimate existential threat for any live mass participation startup hit: the 2020 global lockdowns. Staring down total collapse, the founders had to get incredibly creative really fast. They noticed this huge need for COVID testing, so they actually rented out a closed bar right below their office, paid the owner a few bucks, and completely transformed it into a testing center. And then they rapidly scaled that crazy pivot up to 150 testing centers across Germany. The cash that generated kept the company alive, which allowed them to invest heavily in digital community engagement during the lockdowns. So by the time the world finally reopened in 2022, they had this rabid fan base waiting for them, driving a massive, rapid sellout in London. And that momentum, it has carried them to a projected 1.5 million participants for the 2026 season. Section 12. The 4 revenue pillars, anatomy of a money printing machine. Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is exactly how this asset-light financial engine actually makes its money. Their multi-layered revenue streams are just brilliantly diversified. Ticketing and add-ons make up the massive lion's share at 60%. Merchandise, which is powered by a major global co-branding deal with Puma, makes up 15%. Global sponsorships with massive brands like Red Bull and Amazon bring in another 15%. And finally, 10% comes from gym licensing fees. It is a highly diversified, continuous money printer. And the sheer scale of this machine, it's breathtaking. They are projecting $270 million in revenue for this coming year. A massive driver of this is actually the ticketing add-ons. Think about it. Athletes want to post their hardcore achievements on Instagram, right? So Hyrox offers a $35 professional photo package as an upsell, and an incredible 75% of participants buy it. That is pure margin, completely driving this massive top-line number. So the crucial point is their incredible unit economics. The founders established a really strict rule early on. Produce an event that only costs $200,000 to build, but make it look and feel like a $2 million Olympic-level arena. With dramatic lighting, massive screens, and epic staging, they deliver an incredibly premium experience. And because they keep those operational costs so tight, an event breaks even at just 1,500 to 1,800 participants. When you consider they recently sold 15,000 tickets for a multi-day event in New York, you realize that every single ticket above that break-even threshold is scaling into pure profit. But perhaps the most shocking part of this $270 million empire is that it was built almost entirely without paid digital marketing. No top-of-funnel ads. The founders realized that paying for some 6-second social media ad to explain a completely brand new sport was just a waste of money. Instead, they relied heavily on authentic local creators and high-retention community engagement. It turned out a local gym owner with just 4,000 followers could organically sell 100 tickets just by authentically training for the race on their stories, whereas sending a bunch of free gear to a massive celebrity influencer sold literally zero. Word of mouth at the gym level was everything. Section 17. A decentralized global ecosystem, turning gyms into partners, not rivals. And this brings us to one of Hyrox's smartest strategic choices by far. Look, instead of opening their own massive gym chain and competing with the existing market, they made existing gyms part of their distribution network. Today, over 5,000 gyms happily pay around $1,500 a year to be officially affiliated Hyrox training clubs. In exchange for the license to teach the classes and use the branding, these gyms effectively become thousands of local decentralized marketing hubs. They train their own members for the race, building the Hyrox community every single day on the company's behalf, and they are actually paying Hyrox for the privilege to do it. And the community they've built is staggeringly inclusive. Female participation sits at an incredible 50%, which, if you know the endurance sports industry, is highly unusual and massively successful. The age range spans all the way from 16 to over 70 years old. By offering open, pro, and relay divisions, and starting the race in continuous ways so literally nobody feels like they are finishing dead last in front of a huge crowd, Hyrox appeals equally to the average weekend warrior and the absolute elite fitness fanatic. Section 20. The Olympic ambition, the ultimate finish line. Because of this massive demographic appeal, demand has absolutely skyrocketed across the globe. To manage this without diluting the brand, Hyrox doesn't just open 1 million new cities. Instead, they extend their events into multi-day festivals. We're talking about selling 55,000 tickets in 1 hour for a single event in New York. But the founders' ultimate vision stretches way beyond weekend festivals. They are currently working on an actual Olympic pathway. They're partnering with sporting federations with the explicit target of bringing fitness racing, the sport they essentially invented from scratch, officially to the Olympic stage, aiming directly for the Brisbane 2032 Games. Which leaves us with a totally fascinating thought to wrap up our explainer today. With the largest existing sports infrastructure in the world, global gyms, now finally having its own dedicated game day, you really have to wonder, will fitness racing become the most participated sport in human history? And maybe more importantly, are you going to be lacing up your shoes for the next local race? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the wildly impressive business model of Hyrox, and I will catch you on the next explainer.